soon as I got on the backside of this ridge, I'm gonna keep working my way up. There's something about Colorado second rifle. I don't know if it's because it's one of those hunts I've always heard about. I don't know if it's because it's the first over-the-counter rifle season for elk, and the mule deer tags in a lot of units are pretty easy to draw, and they're still, really good harvest success rates on those tags. So it feels like it's an everyman's hunt, like anybody can come to Colorado for second rifle and still have, there's lots of hunts that anybody can go and do, but they're normally pretty garbage hunts. But second rifle, you might run into some pressure, you might run into some weather, but there's a real good chance you're gonna see some animals and be able to take a shot at one. So it's something that I've always wanted to come and do. And it's the first time I've hunted Colorado. And again, maybe because I've seen so much content from here, I do feel like there's a lot of similarities between where I've hunted in New Mexico and Arizona as far as the topography, the vegetation, the climate. The elevation is something else though. But I'm just about halfway through the first day, bumped one little buck, haven't had a whole lot of action. Saw one other hunter, a couple ridges over there, just sitting and glassing. But super peaceful so far. Just walking around, trying to find some vantage points. I didn't expect it to be so difficult to glass off the top of the ridges. I think I'm at a little bit lower elevation than I want to be. The hunt is much warmer right now than I expected. So I think I'm going to finish out the day in this piece, and I think I'm going to bump to somewhere significantly higher tomorrow. But anyways, still got a few days to make her happen. So this is when, the reality of the situation kicks in. When you're at home, you do all this e-scouting, you think you've got a unit pegged. This whole area in here, I thought when I was running these ridge lines, I was gonna be able to just glass for half a mile. And I underestimated the height and the density of the vegetation, and I'm finding it really challenging to get a commanding view of anything. So really all I'm doing right now is kind of a quasi-still hunt. And then you'll see that section that I just showed you. I stop and I'll glass that just with the binos and then kind of move on. And so I'm just glassing these little pockets while I look for a place that I can actually sit down, break out the spotter, and really, dig into a piece of country. Now, I have found a couple of those locations, but nothing phenomenal. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm just looking for a place that I can sit while it gets dark. So I want a good view for that part of the day. Well, I finally found a place with a decent view. There's maybe an hour and a half of daylight left, a little bit more. The more I've been researching mule deer hunting and just listening to people who know more than I do in general, there seems to be this confusion about hunting till dark. Like a lot of people hunt their way back to the truck for dark. And I've just heard it from a couple people I really respect lately. If you really want to catch a mule deer, you should be sitting at your glassing spot until dark. Like, no more glassing is capable, then you walk back to the truck. Now, obviously, if the terrain doesn't allow for that and it's super sketchy, you got to do what you got to do. But my game plan on this hunt is to be to my glassing knobs 30 minutes before the sun comes up and stay for at least 10 or 15 minutes after the sun goes down. So yeah, I'm just going to sit here, glass some country, and hopefully soon we start to see some movement. Holy shit, that's tight for sore eyes. I think in principle, staying until dark is a good idea. I think when you're taking a new way out, it might not be the best idea. It was a long ass day. I left the truck at 6:30 this morning and it is now 9 o'clock. So almost a 15-hour day. I'm tired. I'm gonna eat, I'm gonna sleep. I'm gonna do this shit all over again tomorrow. Alright, well I finally found a spot where I can sit and pick apart a bucket load of country. It's exactly what I've been looking for. Now, the drawback is I've already been here for a couple hours and I've turned up absolutely nothing. Took a little bit longer to get in here than expected, but that tends to be par for the course. So I'm going to sit here for the rest of the day, and the walk out, although it's not short, it's very clean. So again, I'm going to sit up here until absolute last light and then hike out. If I don't find what I need here today, I got a new game plan for tomorrow. All right. Well, if any of you watched the elk film that I just put up before this one back in September, you notice there was a theme to that, and that was every time I couldn't find what I was looking for, I would move, and I'd move pretty substantially, and that's what I did tonight. So it's almost midnight. I quadded all the way back to the truck. I packed up camp, loaded up the quad, drove all the way back to town, refilled on fuel for the truck and the quad, got myself a nice hamburger at Sonic. I gotta tell you, man, as a Canadian, I mean, it's almost embarrassing how badly our fast food gets beaten by the fast food available in the States. Like almost every single one of your drive-thrus is better than our drive-thrus back at home. Anyways, got a big burger, got some fries, kind of energized me a little bit, and I booted ass all the way to a new unit from where I was last time. I probably passed 50 trucks on the way in here. Now, the upside of that is if there's people here, that means there's animals here. Also, most of these guys are hunting elk, and I'm hunting, I have a deer tag and an elk tag, but I'm targeting deer. If I happen to see an elk, great. I'm more than happy to shoot it as well. But most of these guys will only have an elk tag. So I'm going to pass out for 4 or 5 hours, wake up. And I mean, it's tough hiking into a spot in the dark where you've never been before, hoping that you are where you need to be when the sun comes up. But it was the best plan I had at the time. So here we are. So fingers crossed we can turn up some deer tomorrow. And I have bad news. I found some deer, but this place is crawling with hunters. I've seen 2 dudes in orange on the hill I'm glassing right now, and those deer that I watched go down towards the bottom. A guy drove in on a truck. He's just down there doing loops. Like, this is crazy, and he bumped them back up the hill. I mean, I'm trying to stay optimistic, but I'm getting my ass kicked here. So funny enough, I think I'm at an equal count of does and hunters at 13 apiece. And the hunters, it's one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Like, yeah, they're like wandering back and forth on roads. I can hear them, like, anyways, no judgment. If they're having fun, have at her. And the nice thing is, they're pushing the deer away from them and over towards me. I saw one buck, and he was running in the same direction that these does are over now. So my strategy is just stick on the does, and maybe this buck will catch up to them at some point. And hopefully by that point they've worked their way far enough to the side that it's away from all the pressure and it's something I can actually make a play on. Well, that was certainly interesting. I've never been in that situation before. I found this buck bedded 350, 400 yards away. Smaller than what I'm after, for sure. But then as soon as he stood up, he was injured badly. Like, it looks like somebody broke his front leg. Maybe a misplaced shot, I don't know. And then I had this like internal dialogue. I'm like, should I shoot this deer? It's gonna die anyways. It kind of went up and out of my view before I really had time to like make the decision. But I think that's a really interesting topic for conversation. Like, is that my responsibility as a hunter? Do I cut my tag on a submature animal because it's the merciful thing to do? I don't know. Interesting thought. I'm having a bad day. A real bad day. And elevation sucks. Like, doesn't matter what I do, I'm out of breath. So on the way down here, the trailer lights stopped working. They broke about a month ago and I gotta fix them. And I guess the fix didn't last so long. So I had to stop and buy a pair of those magnetic trailer lights. Well, today, somehow on a dirt road, they bounced off and ripped right out. So back to no trailer lights. Then one of the fenders on the quad trailer cracked and broke and is now like rubbing on the one wheel. And I don't have the tools I need to remove it or fix it. On top of that, the spring action in my gun got jammed and I had to take my rifle apart to get the bullets out. And then I had a spot on the map I was supposed to spend the night glassing. Just did like a half an hour drive and a 45-minute hike in. And it's garbage. There's vegetation everywhere. Can't see shit. So yeah, that's the afternoon I'm having right now. And man, oh God, I just want to lay down and quit. Shit. All right, it's 4 o'clock. It gets dark at 6:30. I gotta find something somewhere that I can get to within an hour so I can glass up some country for the last hour and a half before dark. So we're almost back at the truck, and I don't know, man. Figure something out. All right, I'm gonna do my best to give you a look into what these like long distance solo hunts are like sometimes. I'm having one of the worst days I've ever had hunting, for sure. Everything seems to be going wrong. So I talked about this earlier, but just a bunch of hassles with the trailer. And I don't really get into my kid much in my hunt films, but I've never not been home for Halloween, ever. My kid's only 7, it's not a ton of Halloweens, but when I booked this hunt, I forgot that I was gonna be gone for Halloween. I thought I was gonna be okay with that, and I'm not. It's been a really hard day, and a really big part of me wanted to go home and take my daughter trick-or-treating. And I'm not going to say that it's some like badass thing to stick it out, because I don't even necessarily think it is. I think I probably should have went home and taken her trick-or-treating. But anyways, what's done is done. I had to come into town because I had to buy 2 different wrenches in order to fix the trailer. I'll show you that in a second. Now with the trailer lights, so here's what happened. The trailer lights worked fine originally. They broke it about a month ago. I got them repaired. When they broke on the way down here, I replaced them with those magnetic ones. The magnetic ones fell off today and ripped out. Bad news, trailer lights gone again. Good news, I was able to take one half of that wiring harness with the other half of the built-in wiring harness, and we are fully functional yet again, just because I got to show it off. Thing of beauty. Now, with the trailer, look at this action here. So what actually happened was, see where that broke? So this
was rubbing on the tire, so I had to go buy socket wrench and a crescent wrench, because of course the nut and the bolt can't be the same size. Bolt is 16 millimeter and the nut is 17 millimeter. So I had to buy two different wrenches. I've got the one side off, I'm now gonna crawl under, and I'm gonna get the other side off. And then I had to come into town anyways, so I got a night at a hotel, more like a cabin actually. I'm gonna have a shower, try and wash the bullshit of this day off, and we're gonna start again tomorrow and hope for the best, man.
I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but I just passed 7 does. They barely even moved. I'll give you an update once it gets a little bit lighter. But we're in a new spot, and we're gonna kick some ass today. Towards the back of the piece. I'm maybe 3 miles deep. The sign is definitely picking up. Seeing good sized buck tracks. Seeing some good scat on the road. And I ran into 2 more does. So things are looking good. This guy's older brother. All right, now I feel like we are definitely getting somewhere. So I've been hiking straight since I left the truck at 6:30 and it's now 10 o'clock. Probably 4.5 miles deep at this point, and there's more timber than I expected, so it's making glassing challenging, but I popped out. I'm following this little ridge line, waiting for breaks in the timber, and there's this beautiful meadow that kind of opened up, and I lifted up my glass and like boom, there's 2 does. In about a half an hour, I saw 4 does and 1 weird buck, like maybe a cactus buck, because it looked like he still had velvet, but he was just like a forky, but the one horn kind of twisted. It was really weird. But it's also, like I said, it's already 10 o'clock in the morning, and I talked to a guide yesterday, and he said, you gotta sit in glass all day. Everybody always says mornings and evenings for mule deer, but he's like, they're migrating right now. So you could see a buck at any time during the day. So this is encouraging to see those deer still out and wide open at 10 o'clock in the morning. So I'm just gonna keep following this ridge line and keep looking for little pockets that I can glass. So I got some good news and I got some bad news. I found a shooter buck, but he is on private land that I can't access. And he's maybe 300-400 yards inside it. And he's still a good 1.25 miles from where I am right now. I'm gonna keep working this chunk of country that I'm in. There's deer everywhere. I think I'm at like 20 does and 2 bucks spotted so far, and it's 11:15. and they're still moving around. The buck just bedded down now, but the does are still eating, and the buck was still eating as of like 10 minutes ago. So I think that's another major takeaway, is that like this is an all-day affair this time of year. It is not just morning and evening, but feeling very encouraged. Hopes are high. All right, so I just had a bite of lunch, made a fresh coffee, laid down for 15 or 20 minutes to recharge. I've picked up that buck again from earlier who was on private. He's now on public. He's 1,300 yards away. Now when I bomb off this hill, I'm gonna lose sight until I'm within a couple hundred yards. Now he was bedded with 2 does, and he just got up and started feeding, but he started feeding in this direction. So it's 2 o'clock now. Got lots of time, so yeah, let's see if we can get this done. Well, so much for that. Literally, as soon as I stopped recording, I packed up the rest of my bag, like 45 seconds at the most, hooked the camera on, popped up my binos. I'm like, I'll make one last verification. Gone. 2 does and a buck, and I think they dumped off that backside. And if they go further that way, they go back onto the private. All right, I feel like every time I shut this camera off, something changes. So last time I just said buck was gone. I'm hiking out a different way. Then I checked one last time in the spotter. Not only did the buck come back, there was a second buck there. So I'm stood there staring at these 2 bucks for 10 minutes, trying to figure out what to do. And here's my final decision, because the one buck kept eating, and the other one is bedded in like a depression, and I will literally have to be right on top of him before I will get a shot opportunity. And I can come at this from another way tomorrow morning and get within a few hundred yards of where they're at. So I sat here until 4 p.m. The one buck, I think, bedded behind a tree, and I haven't been able to see him for probably an hour and a half. The other buck has not moved. And I see no reason why he's going to move tonight. Now, I could be wrong, but the other thing is we're currently in a migratory pattern, which means that if these bucks come through, there's probably more bucks coming from down on high. And I think this is the corridor that they like to use. So I'm gonna hunt my way out to the truck for the next 2.5 hours until it gets dark, and then go right into that spot tomorrow morning and see if I can't, shoot one of those bucks or a different buck. I mean, I don't really care as long as it's a decent buck. Well, there's certainly no shortage of deer sign in here. It's amazing how you can walk on all these ridges. Some of them are highways, like they're just beat up with tracks, and other ones you get none. There really is, movement patterns that they like and ones they just never use. I didn't do a very good job of closing out yesterday. Very little deer action on the way out, but I did hear an elk bugle and saw a herd of 10 or 11. He's bugling back in there right now. I didn't bring a diaphragm with me, so I can't go in there and chase him. Anyways, saw a herd of 10 or 11 elk, heard that guy bugling. I'm back in the exact same piece today. I had to come in the same way. I thought I could come in another way, but it's a no-go. Man, that dude is going off. So yeah, I'm gonna do basically the same route, only now I know what I'm looking for. I'm gonna go have a peek after this bull first, though. Well, that was a crazy start to the morning. I don't know how well any of that'll show up on the GoPro for the audio and everything, but I decided to run up the mountain after that bull. I feel like I had him to within 150 yards. Like his bugles were like right there, but it's super thick in here. It's even thicker up there. And we were going back and forth, and I was trying a couple of different tactics, and I just couldn't get him to commit. And I was pushing and I was pushing, and I stopped at an opening, and everything just went dead. Waited 10, 15 minutes, bugled one more time, and he torched off from way down the valley. So I think it's just a little bit late in the year for him to be hyper aggressive. I think, he was a killable bull. I just wasn't able to get it done. But man, that'll get the heart pumping, that's for sure. I made it back up to the glassing knob where I was watching those 2 bucks yesterday. I haven't seen them yet. There's about 7 does right in the exact same tree where the 2 bucks were. Well, where the one of the 2 bucks were. So I'm going to give it about an hour and a half and see if they pop up. If they don't, I got a plan B. But for now, I'm just going to sit, wait, and watch and cross my fingers. Well, I gave it 2 more hours, and I spotted 2 more does, but no bucks. And now I'm kind of kicking myself in the ass for not going over there yesterday. But with the information I had at hand, I made the best decision that I could. So it is what it is. Now, there's still a whole kind of section over here that I haven't been to yet, that I didn't have enough time to get to yesterday because I sat here to watch those 2 bucks. So I'm going to pack up. It's 1 o'clock now. I got 5.5 hours until it gets dark. So I'm going to head over that way until about 3. And then it'll take me about 3.5 hours to get back to the truck from here if I kind of hunt my way back to the truck. So hopefully we can turn something up. So I got to this new basin, and I'm glassing up like a bunch of like single and double does, tucked away in little shady spots. And I feel like there's gotta be a buck or 2 kicking around, but they're probably bedded a little more more securely. It's still only like 1:30, 2 o'clock. Around 3 o'clock yesterday, they started getting up and moving again. So I think I'm just gonna try and keep eyes on this, and hopefully when they start moving, there is a buck down there and he'll come out. All right, so I made it to the end of the piece, literally bordering on private land as far as I can go. I just sat down for half an hour, did some glassing, had a cup of coffee. It's 4 o'clock now, so I got 2.5 hours of daylight left. I'm gonna turn around now and start making my way back to the truck and just kind of picking my way and make it slowly. And I'm trying to think of a game plan for tomorrow. Well, that happened faster than expected. So I was coming down off of the hill that I was on, and I just seen 3 does, and I hit this little saddle, and I could see movement through the timber, and I could see antlers. So I lifted up my binos, confirmed, yep, that's a deer. Yes, he has a decent rack. Put the binos back in the case, shouldered my rifle. He came out into a clearing. It was an offhand shot at 75 yards. He was looking at me, and I took the shot. I'm super grateful for this buck. Now, he's not the biggest buck in the world, 100%. When I was originally coming to Colorado, I had kind of like visions of like 180s and 220s, you know, dancing in my head. And I think one of the things is when you're traveling to a new place on a new hunt, sometimes you got to manage your expectations. And the bottom line is, I've been here for 5 days, and this is the first buck that I've had in my crosshairs. And like I mentioned on my last hunt film, right now my goal as a hunter is consistency. And this guy's gonna fill the freezer. He's a great looking buck, great body on him, tons of good meat. Now, the only downside to this is I'm 7 miles from the truck, and it's 5:30. So I have 1 hour of daylight left. So I am gonna put the camera down, I'm gonna process this guy, and I'm gonna get back to the truck. And I'll kind of like have a sit on it and formulate my thoughts, and I'll do a better recap tomorrow. But yeah, man, tagged out in Colorado. Couldn't be happier. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to hit the road. So it's 7:30 p.m. now. That was exactly 2 hours to completely break him down, get him in the pack, and ready to go. So here's the pack, all loaded up, the XOK4. Looking pretty solid. Yeah, I would not normally put the horns pointing straight up, but it's now the middle of the night and I've got the big orange on the back, so it is what it is. Got pile over there, and then that's it. Like I said, I think I got about 7 miles to go to the truck. There's a little bit of up and down, but I think if I zigzag, I can kind of minimize it. So 7:30 now, I don't know. Midnight would be great, but we'll check in when we're back at the truck. All right, we're on our way, fully loaded. You know, it doesn't feel that bad. I'm probably sure it's gonna feel pretty bad in a few minutes, but right now it feels pretty damn good. So let's crush some miles. All right, halfway back to the truck. I'm about two hours deep. Here's the pack. Holy, remember when I said it was feeling pretty good?
All kidding aside though, and I hate for this to sound like a sales pitch, but I love this K4, man. Like, yeah, you feel like a bag of trash when you're walking. Like, there's 100 pounds in there, easy. This is never gonna feel good. But I don't get any hot spots. It doesn't slip down off my ass. My shoulder blades aren't burning. Like, yeah, man. Considering there was a lot of up and down there. But when I just took that pack off, that was literally one of the finest feelings in the world. Oh, I also forgot I only had 200 milliliters of water. And so I drank 100 milliliters of it before I left, and I'm going to drink the other 100 milliliters now. The second half is easier than the first half. I wanted to get the big grunt of it out of the way before I took a break. This is my first break. Try and take the packs off as little as possible. Just keep moving. Anyways, quick little break. Back to the truck we go. All right, I'm back to the truck. It was about 4.5 hours. I could go on about how terrible it was, but who really cares? I'm the one who decided to shoot a deer in the middle of nowhere. I am absolutely wiped. So no big dramatic wrap up. Going to a hotel, gonna eat an unbelievable amount of food and go to bed without setting an alarm. And then some point on the drive home, I'll do a little wrap up, but feeling pretty good. I want to give a little bit of context around the beginning of this hunt and kind of how I came into this hunt. So for anybody who watched the elk film that I posted last month, you'll know that I got in a quad accident at the end of that hunt. So essentially what happened was I was going up this kicker to get back onto the road. I had a whole elk on the quad. Most of it was on the back. Quad flipped over on top of me. I was able to roll to the side so I didn't get crushed, but my calf and shin got stuck between the handlebars and the front fender. And when the quad came over and rolled to the side, it just obliterated my knee. So I got an MRI. I got the results from that MRI about 2.5 weeks before I left on this hunt. And essentially the damage was I completely tore my MCL. I tore 50% of my ACL. I had partial tears in my PCL and my LCL. So all 4 crucial ligaments were torn to some degree, and the MCL was a complete and total rupture. In addition to that, I had a previous partial tear in my medial meniscus. That tore completely through, and I got a new partial tear in my lateral meniscus. In addition to that, on my patella, I had a fissure in one part, and then I had bone marrow edema underneath the surface of the patella. So basically my knee came apart, like it got twisted apart, and then it smashed back together when it hit the ground, cracking the patella, causing bone marrow edema or swelling of my bone marrow. And I also had a bone contusion on the other bone that connects underneath the patella. So basically the patella and the other bones smashed into each other, one cracked, one bruised. And so pretty devastating damage. Now, I'm not going to get into my whole rehab therapy that I went through. I'll do a whole podcast on that, but I went hard I knew when I got back from the elk, like, this knee is obliterated. And I only have 5 weeks until Colorado. Everybody told me I was nuts and that it was completely unreasonable to think that I was going to be able to go and do a backpack hunt in Colorado 5 weeks after an injury like this, even though at that point I didn't know the extent of the injury. And maybe it's a good thing I didn't know the extent, because maybe I wouldn't have been so successfully delusional about how long it was going to take me to rehab. And I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, and I don't want to encourage people to do things that are going to endanger their health or, set them back on some type of rehab program. But I think far too often, people take the safe course of action or have, like, I said this before, I love this line from the movie Dune, fear is the mind killer. I think in reality, doubt is the mind killer. And there's this awesome interaction between George St. Pierre and Greg Jackson in one of George St. Pierre's fights, where he gets taken back to the corner and he sits on his stool in between rounds, and he whispers to Greg, "I think I tore my groin." And Greg says, "I don't care. I want you to hit him with your groin." And it was like, I kept playing that little snippet back over to myself in my mind, preparing for this hunt, because I would have doubt creeping about my knee, and I'd be like, well, what about my knee? And I would literally say to myself, you're gonna beat a deer to death with your knee. If that's what it takes, if that's the type of commitment that you need to get into this hunt, not only do I care if it's not healed, if I have to not walk after this hunt, so be it. That's what I will do. Like, that was the level of commitment. And I know that seems insane and it seems ridiculous. And it's like, why would you care that much? Like, why would you risk your knee for some stupid mule deer hunt? Like, in the big scheme of things, because at the end of the day, if you don't make something your Super Bowl, do you know what I mean? Like, if you're not willing to give everything that you have to something, whatever it is, part of me feels like, well, then what's the point? Like, why half-ass? Why do anything if you're only gonna half-ass it? I know that not only would I not have come on this hunt, I certainly wouldn't have been successful if I had allowed an element of doubt to creep into my mind. But because I was unreasonable, and because I wanted to bend the way of the world to my will, if you will, I was able to not only come down here, but be successful. So that was important to me. I didn't share about my knee during the film because I didn't even want to acknowledge psychologically that there was the potential for me to have to back out of the hunt or, call it early or any one of a number of things. And I'm like, if I just don't acknowledge that that's a possibility, then it can't actually happen. I'd already decided that if I saw anything relatively decent, I was going to pull the trigger. And if I had not made that decision prior to this engagement, there would not be a dead deer in the back of my truck right now, because he would not have given me enough time to assess him and then shoot. I lifted my binos once and I saw antlers and I'm like, that's good enough for me. I put my binos down. I carry my gun in a Kafaru gun bearer, which keeps it right in front of me. This is the third deer I have killed in exactly the same way with that Kafaru gun bearer. Like, I think if you're going to be doing still hunting of any kind, you either need to have the gun in your hands, which kind of sucks because you can't do gun and binos at the same time, or you need to have some type of quick release system like the Kafaru gun bearer. I lifted it up. He gave me one of these like over the shoulders, and I put the crosshair kind of a little far back on that front shoulder so that it would kind of cut through the vitals on the way out, because it was a pretty steep quartering away shot. And with zero hesitation, again, I noted the rack. I'm like, okay, he's not a spike. He's a decent buck. His body looked nice. I pulled the trigger, boom. And then he kind of like walked away. And for a second, I almost thought I missed because he didn't kick. He didn't run. It was almost like anticlimactic. And then when I walked up, couldn't find any blood. And I'd walked less than 20 yards. And I was so concentrated on the ground at my feet that I hadn't really been paying attention to the surroundings. And then I got 20 yards down this trail, and literally right at my feet is the dead deer. And that was less than 5 minutes after I shot him. Now, I made one major mistake on this hunt, and I guarantee it's not going to be something that's going to immediately come to your mind. And here's what it is. People always ask me about the challenges of solo hunting, and I always tell them, it's going to be your mind that sends you home way before your body. So it's not the wrong boots. It's not the wrong tent. It's not bringing not enough food. It's not having a clear mind when you enter your hunt. Like, you need to take care of shit at home. You need to make sure your bills are paid. You need to make sure things are good with your wife and your kids. You don't have any looming deliverables at work. Because when you go away by yourself, those things just eat at your mind and your commitment and your drive. When you go away with a group of people, you can kind of ignore stuff like that because you distract each other, you have conversations, there's interesting things going on, and you're not left to your own devices 24 hours a day. But when you're by yourself, those things will kill your drive, right? And here's what happened. When I originally booked this hunt, and I mentioned this earlier, I did not recognize that I was going to be gone for Halloween, and I have never missed taking my daughter trick-or-treating. I thought I was going to be okay with that. I thought she was going to kind of be okay with that. It was not the case. I was not okay with it. She was not okay with it. I almost broke down on the third day. I screwed up. No matter how much I had invested in this hunt, in planning or money, or I should have canceled it because I could not disconnect from my reality at home to be 100% in the reality here. And that made it very difficult to stay focused. It made it very difficult to stay motivated. And that was a huge takeaway for me. Like, that won't happen again. I will recognize what the true priority is and I will take care of it. Maybe it meant I had a shorter hunt. Maybe I stuck around for Halloween first and then I only had 5 hunting days. Okay, so be it. Maybe I canceled the hunt altogether and planned something for later in the year. Like, I screwed up and I'm going to learn from it and I'm not going to let it happen again. But the takeaway there is you got to clean up your home before you leave. Like, you can't have anything hanging over your head because it will kill you on a solo hunt. All right, there you have it. 2023 Colorado second rifle mule deer. My thoughts, my kind of musings, and a dead deer in the back of the truck, which is always a kind of a nice little bonus. So if you could take a moment and engage with this content in any way, I would greatly appreciate it. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I'm going home for 1 week and then I leave for archery whitetail in Saskatchewan. So hopefully I can create some more cool content out of that hunt as well. And as always, thank you for tuning in.